This is Breaking MedTech. I am Ryan. This is Cope. He thinks the Queen of England is the same as Britney Spears. And today we're
married. She was married to Kevin Federline. I'm convinced of it. Please continue.
Today we're going to be talking about the fact that a lot of small med device companies who go to 1099s to sell their product or distributors allow 1099s and distributors to tell their story. And that's a big problem. We're not even talking about like the regulatory aspect of, are they going to say something wrong that they shouldn't say? We're just talking like pure, they're not saying what you need them to say. And the idea behind it is that when you and I know enough 1099s, I like 1099s as people. I don't always agree with like the idea of going with 1099s because of the bad 1099s. But if you're trusting 1099s to tell your story, they're not reading your sales deck. I could guarantee you that. They're not watching your demo videos. Absolutely not. And they definitely aren't leading with your story and your brand. If they are selling, they're leading with price, or they know someone and they're using their access. And that's not strategy. That's luck. And it's definitely not a way that you're going to build a brand. Or a story that people or a narrative, whatever you want to call it.
So, right, I think you're probably right. In my experience, I would say you're right. But let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
How else are you going to find out what works than let the salespeople go do what they do? And you can't tell them what to do. They're 1099s. You can highly influence them. You can ask them. You can beg them if you like. But why shouldn't you use it to your advantage?
All right. Why shouldn't you use it to the advantage? Because let's say you have, I'm just thinking about like some of these groups. Let's say you want to have a 1099 or a distributor in every single state, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So you have 50 1099s. Okay. And maybe in some of the smaller states, like Rhode Island doesn't get their own rep. Okay. Yeah, they're probably Massachusetts or Connecticut or whatever. But you have 50 of them. Mm-hmm. How many are going to be good?
The data indicates 10 maximum. 20%.
Yeah.
Maximum.
So that means 80% of them are just saying whatever they want. And again, not for a regulatory reason, just they're telling their own story about what your product is, and it's probably why they suck.
And let me qualify that number I gave. I said 20% sell your product.
Yeah.
Like that, which is different than what Ryan said, which is kind of, he said who's good, but really what he's saying is who's giving your message the right way every time. And I would say in that case, it's probably 2%. Maybe 2 or 4% are actually giving your message. You hope that they're part of the 20% that's actually selling, but you know the other 80% is probably doing neither.
That was so much math for you.
I'm getting stronger. I'm a strong man with math, getting stronger every day.
10th grade level. You just need to know basic math. That's honestly all you really need in life. So what we have seen is that there is a false sense of security that comes with having distributors and 1099s. They're a necessary evil for a lot of these companies. You and I typically disagree with the idea of like hiring 50 1099s just because they're so dispersed. There's no way to control all of them. And I don't mean you can't control 1099s. You can influence them. And I don't mean control them in a bad way. I just mean like it's a lot, right? It's a lot to do. Like the idea of think about now that I said this is a completely think about a sales manager managing 50 people. You would never let a sales manager manage 50 people. Yet so many small medical device companies go and hire 50 1099s and have like one VP of sales oversee them. There's no way to do it.
Yeah.
But that's a completely that's a side tangent.
That's a setup to describe
But
how difficult we make it on these people. But the concept we're talking about is if that VP of sales could handle 50, which we think is weak, they are relying on 50 different people to give what's likely 50 to 100 different messages about their product. And I think on one of our other ones, you gave a real nice description of the formula they should be using, which is problem, urgency, and then outcomes.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I was saying then deliver curiosity. So, okay. So we know we can't tell 1099s what to do, but we can hope to influence them and persuade them, which
And
I've got some thoughts on, but
we're going to go complete non-medical device here. Okay. Not even the world of medical device. You know how I think more of these companies should approach messaging and like with their 1099s, because you're going to use them, whether I tell you to or not, a lot of them are going to go do it. You know who they should learn from? Franchises, food franchises. Okay.
I like this.
Okay.
Continue.
Food fry. You think Ray Kroc, like if you've watched The Founder, the guy was a crazy person with how he wanted their brand to be represented and what messaging you used and how their facilities look. And yeah, I don't want you to be like Ray Kroc, or you can be, but like that's the type of obsessive nature that you should have when you were working with your 1099s, right? Chick-fil-A is famous for it. Like if I was going to pick a fast food company that is a franchise and they're like the most, you find me a Chick-fil-A on planet Earth that you walk into and you're like, this place isn't the friendliest place on earth. It's not like it's clean, it's efficient. Their messaging is great. Everybody's doing the right thing. Food franchises, nail it.
And do you know why? Like, because you can say, well, yeah, but that's all they do is do Chick-fil-A. Like you're talking about 1099s who carry multiple things, right? And I would say you're right. But you know how they demand a large franchise fee and get people to do exactly what they want is they have a proven model of success.
Yeah.
And if you do get that franchise, you can make bank on what your outcomes are going to be because it's a predictable model. And I think that's where it falls apart for the small med device companies. I think you're absolutely right. But the way you get those 1099s to give your message is
by having a good message. Yeah.
That they can remember that's been proven effective somewhere. Right? And how do we know it's proven effective? Oh, that's a bit of a different. That's why I always say don't get 1099s
until you're ready.
Until you sold some of these yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
So when I see a lot of these groups, right, I think, and that's like a really, like, this is not a talking point, so I'm just kind of going here, but like, a lot of what you can do with 1099s, if you go and hire 1099s, because maybe you are really good at selling your product, is like, again, we repeat this all the time. Like, you got to document what you're doing. You have to be like constantly, you should be building like a book or a framework or a structure or whatever you want to do. There should be a document that like a Bible, whatever you want to call it, that your reps can go to. You're documenting everything. Here's our messaging. Here's our talking points. Here's our 60-second thing. I mean, like, can you tell the story that you just told me before? You can keep it anonymous if you want, about the 60-second.
Yeah, a really smart person I know was, this is 30 years ago, was maybe 40 years ago, was named VP of a medical device company, VP of sales. And he went before they went to their big first initial sales meeting, he went 3 days early, rented a recording booth, and spent hours and days recording what he felt was the absolute best 60-second opening message. I wish I knew what it was. And recorded it, knowing they would ultimately have to change it down, but he needed to give them a bit of a playbook and a talk track, and he literally gave them a talk track. He recorded it, made cassette tapes of it. This tells you how old it was, And every single rep was given this cassette tape and told, carry this around, listen to it in your car when you're driving to places at 60 seconds, and then deliver this message. And my guess is, he didn't say this, but my guess is he said, because it will help you develop curiosity and interest in our product repeatably, right? So I'm applying that last part. That's how important it is. And it was very successful for them. I know this guy, right?
He's a very successful person. Yeah. Now, can I ask you something? Because, again, contrarians would go, well, 1099s don't want to be told what to say or what to do. I, as a former 1099, and having to be on the receiving end of, like I personally was in 1099, but like I was part of distributorship for small medical device companies. You know what I would have loved? Exactly what I'm asking these groups to go do. I would have loved to have messaging that, like, here are talking points you should go say. Here are things that you should go do. Here are emails you could use. Here are things that you could post on social media. Here are all these things, because what we got more often than not was we'd all be dragged into a room on a Friday morning, or we were flown to a facility and we would go through like a 2-day training, and it would be, I'm going to curse, this is why our show's explicit according to YouTube, I make it that way, fed utter horseshit for 2 days that was in no way beneficial. And then we were part of what I think is a really good sales organization. And then we would leave that meeting, and then we would have like a follow-up meeting, and we would all go like, all right, well, here's what we're actually going to say, because they have no idea what they're talking about. The
post-meeting meeting about the meeting.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, so I actually, so Rye, like I'll tell you how serious I think this sort of thing is. Here's mine. I carry it. Now, I have it memorized, but sometimes I catch notes. I sit and I carry it to remind myself to deliver it. The more I deliver it, the more effective I am. I've given it a lot of thought. It's that important. Do 1099s want that? No. But yes.
I think they do. I think they do. I think where 1099s don't like it is because 9 times out of 10, they're thinking the same thing that I think when they go into those meetings, is that like, oh, this is going to be
right.
I could be selling right now. I could be doing something differently. Like,
I have to listen to somebody tell me what to say who has never stood on the front lines and delivered this.
Who clearly has no idea what they're talking about.
And I can think of one person off the top of my head who used to tell me, I've been in sales for 35 years. No, I know you know. No, he was not. And you could tell the minute he started talking.
Yeah.
And his credibility was really likable, still a friend. But 1099s are like, well, I'm going to have to go figure this out because this guy clearly doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And so I do agree. Like, I actually think people want it, but the older and crustier the 1099, the more convincing they need that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but that's a persuasion issue. But you're absolutely right. I do think people want, I mean, I can tell you from a coaching standpoint, people want to be coached. The best players, the best athletes, the best actors on the planet want to be coached.
So,
right?
Yeah. And you sent me something that, let's talk about like what these groups should do. And then I'm going to describe what it actually looks like, because you've sent me something like this. So what these groups should be doing is, I know I called it a Bible, but like you should be creating a handbook that's not 1,000 pages. And it's also not a single page, unless you could do it in a single page, in which if you could do it in like, there are products do
it if you can, but it's unlikely.
It's unlikely.
You need a couple of playbook or a couple pages.
Like, here are things you should say. Here are talking points. Here are the pain points. Here's the way to describe the pain points. Here's that. So, you should be creating a manual like that, right? You should be creating a core story they can deliver in 60 seconds, which ties into the episode that we just did about like, what's your one-liner, right? You should have you should be giving them a one-liner that they can use. You should be making videos. So either self-recorded videos. So I'm sure if the guy you were talking about, if it was easy to create videos, you told me he rented a recording booth because that was the only way he could record.
That was like 1992, right? So it was a long time.
Did you think 1992 was 40 years ago?
No, I might have been older than that. He said CDs didn't exist.
Okay,
so
then it was definitely
CDs came out around late 80s.
I was going to say, I'm not that old.
Cars didn't have CD players in them. I don't. Continue.
So this is really just me defending myself that I'm not that old. I wasn't born in 92. I was born in 88. So he would use video walkthroughs or short looms. So Loom is a video recording software. I know you use Vidyard. And to train them fast, that they like 60-second videos that they could pop on and go, this. They can sit in an hour and go, I should talk about this. 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 I should say this way. Okay. And then arming them with starter scripts, talking points, emails that they can use, stuff that they can do where they're going to adapt it. And we could talk about that in a second of how they're going to adapt it, but they're going to adapt it. But like, a toolbox that they can go out and go, I need to use this. I need to use this. I need to use this. I need to use this.
Well, can I change it to from need, which I agree is actually the thought is I want to use this.
Yeah, I want to use this.
They made it easy for me to go sound like a domain expert pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with you. It is they need to use, but like when you say to 1099s, you need to do this, they immediately push back.
Yeah.
Right. So you say like, hey, if you do this, you're more likely to succeed. You can memorize it. You can practice it. You can use it as a good sort of loose script to go off of. But understand, we field tested this. This works. This matters. You'll make it better, and we want to hear how you make it better. But work off of this, right? And go ahead.
So now let's again, we'll push back. Nobody does this, okay? That would be something that I know for a fact would be like, no one actually does that, though. I know for a fact, because you showed me it, that there's a guy who's a very good sales consultant. And you showed me once, like, hey, here's something that he delivered to a customer. Tell me what you think of it. And it was maybe about 10 pages. And it was a whole bunch of talking points. So he sat down with them for like a 2-day workshop, and he took them through a whole bunch of things. I think he went out and talked to a couple of their customers that they did have, and he put together a packet and was like, with emails, with text messages, with phone stuff. And this is a medical device company, for all those who say like, oh, this won't work with medical device. This is a medical device company. And he handed it to them. And their sole purpose of that document was they were going to turn it around and give it to their 1099s to improve sales.
Yep.
And I know for a fact that this individual has done this with multiple companies and helped and done this exact thing where he has gone in, talked about them, did all these things. They took it, handed it to their 1099s, and it has to be successful. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because I know he gets a lot of business from people referring him of going like, this worked for us, you should do this. So it does exist. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, there are individuals out there. And if you really want to know who this person is, you could DM Mark and he could introduce you to him. But like, there are individuals out there that are their only job is like they come in and they help you and you pay them $15,000, $20,000. I don't know. I think that was a ballpark of what this person cost. And they literally will go, all right, give me 2 days, 2.5 weeks ago, do some research, give me these people, come back. Here's what you need to do. And it helps.
Yeah, it totally does. And, you know, is it a script? Maybe. Certain people want scripts. Mm-hmm. Is it a guideline? Absolutely. Is it a guidebook? No doubt.
Yeah, that's probably
right?
The best way to.
You may come up with a better term for it than I do, but I would look at it as a guidebook and say, like, look, I'm getting great interest, but I do want to know what are some good emails or text messages, or it'll help me think, and somebody's done the bulk of the work. Yeah. And I can now do this. So back to your original point of 50 1099s, you now are trying to help the middle 30%, try to get the back end off the ground and give them something so that they can implement or have their younger reps start to execute, because it's a playbook, it's a cookbook, call it what you will, and it gets your message out more often. Nothing works perfectly every time, but you can then say to people, hey, here, are you doing this? We found this to work other places. Try it yourself. And you get everybody on literally the same page, right?
Yeah, everyone's on the same page. I would tell you, it's probably the best way to actually like build a brand and a narrative that everyone can align with, and people go like, oh, you're this group. Even if you have a bunch of 1099s and distributors spread out across, the United States or Canada or Mexico, like, North America, well, like you're controlling what the narrative is. And it's a bit controlling, but guess what? You should be controlling about it. You shouldn't just be leaving it up to fate that like they're going to figure it out themselves. Statistically speaking, they won't.
Right. And so here's what 1099s want from your company, Small Med Device. They want you to make it easy.
Yes.
And they want to get wins fast.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only way you can really deliver it. And if you've predictably done it in other places, you say, here's the playbook. Now, you're going to see some people resist you. It's okay. Right? Appreciate that. Acknowledge it. But you're just saying to them, when you reach up and speak about my product, I want to make sure you feel armed, that you have a chance to make it as easy as, my job is to make it as easy as possible, and make it as profitable as soon as possible, so that you can win, right? Because otherwise you'll just bury my product. And by the way, it leaves you Small Med Device leaves you a back door that if they're not using this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Come on, dude, right? Like, it does give you a little back door.
All right. Because you can have a very definitive, you could ask a very defined question of, are you using everything that we sent you? And
so, good.
If they go no, you go, I don't understand why, Cope, because Jim in Tennessee is using it and he just closed X million dollars in business. You got to use it, dude. I promise you it's going to work. And if they go, yeah, I'll start using it. And then you ask again in a couple weeks and they go, yeah, no, I'm going to get to, I just, I don't really like whatever their excuse is. You know what? Now you have a defined way of going.
Not working out, brother.
Not working out.
No,
or we got a 30 day out, and it's a very defined versus what happens is I got a couple leads in the pipeline and they're going to close. And listen, we just, nope.
So if you're a Small Med Device company, Ryan, our advice is you have to get your messaging right.
Mm-hmm.
You need a couple of wins, I personally think, before you go to 1099s, but you're in with 1099s. You need to give them a playbook that says, here's the message, here's how to start sales calls. You tell them Here's who you should target, right?
Yeah.
Here's what we have found to be effective when we say this. Here are other places that are using it, because you're going to be asked that. What else is in your playbook? What am I missing? Because I know I'm missing something.
I would say, if you could give them videos that they can actually reference and look at. If you could give them a core story that's actually recorded and written down.
So a core story would be what? Could you give me off the top of your head? Could you give me a quick example of one?
Can I go with, just because we were talking about them before, like the Arbutus thing, right? So, for all those who don't know, Arbutus is a company that sells packs for traction in the ER. They make it very easy, right? Everything's in a single pack.
Putting people in traction in the emergency department is a huge workload issue, problem. They solve it by having everything you need in a pack.
Yeah. So
all you need is lidocaine.
Actually, that's a good tagline. All you need is lidocaine. So
that's what they said to me, and I'm like, you should say that every time.
You should say that every time. So like a core story for me would be kind of building off of what I said before. So yeah, let's assume that you're an ER doctor or an administrator. So I'm going to tailor it a little bit, but you're an ER doctor. Dr. Copeland, right? You do traction in the ER?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All the
time. Is it a pain in the ass every time you do it, right? You got to run around. You got to look for different things. Everything's never where it's supposed to be. Your power equipment isn't where you need it. We fix that.
The ortho guys come in, they steal stuff from sterile processing because they need this, and then they got to run on the floor and find the bow thing that they use for traction. It's a nightmare, Ryan.
Yeah, so we fix that.
That sounds wonderful.
Right, and then going
terrible emergency department. Though.
Yeah, it says you're too big. How you'd be like, how do you fix it? And then you go like, well, we make single-use traction packs that have this, this, and this, and this. Honestly, we joke and we say, all you need is the lidocaine.
There might be one other thing you need, but I'm telling you, I think it's something that simple, right?
I'm just basing it off of conversations I've had with you. I don't know anyone there. So that's a 60-second story that you can sit and deliver, and it's way more controlled, and it's way more like than if Jim from Tennessee was going in there and going like, we make traction packs. What is that? What?
Problem, urgency, outcome, and you have me curious. I don't have my bike helmet on. I'm not a true emergency department doctor, but I'm close, right? So I like that. So that's what you mean, right? I think that's really like what you just described is the way the best people sell in every industry. I think, but particularly in med device. I really like that. I think that helps any reps that are listening to this. Do you have that story? 60-second story. Ryan just killed it. Like problem, urgency, outcome, curiosity.
And it's like
you now have it.
Yeah, and it's like I almost think like it's a better story to deliver than like, because what could you do? You go real dark and you'd be like, Doc, you know how you had to do that traction and then this thing and then the patient lost their leg, like. That might be a real story that happened, but like, is that relatable to everybody? Because you just like, you couldn't get the stuff you needed for traction and the patient lost their leg. And you might even like, you could go, you could also go something like hospitals lose $60,000 a year because of traction related. Like, again, I'm just making something off, and you could do that, but that's
a story.
Right? That's fine, but I don't know if it's as compelling of a story as making it a relatable thing. But different reps are going to deliver different things. And my point would be, you figure out if you're the founder or the sales leader at that company before you hire the 1099s. You should know what is the best way to describe it. What's the best story to tell?
Yeah, I love this. And by the way, you might need 2 or 3 60-second stories depending on the 3
who you're talking to.
Audiences. Like in their instance, it's orthopedics, emergency department, and potentially business people.
Yeah.
So the story you told, the 60,000 one, again, made up, is actually the business story. You find out who you're talking to, and you tailor your story to them, but you're telling a story. And a good company would say, we got 3 different stories.
Well,
these work for these 3 different audiences.
It's almost like I've been listening. I've been listening to a book on challenger sales, and it's like the 60,000 thing is almost like you're educating them, like because you could go like, hey, do you know that most ER departments lose like $100,000 a year on this specific problem, and they might not be aware of it, but you're educating them in a way that's not like being an a-hole where you're like lecturing them. You're just kind of going like, did you know that? And they like, what do we, more often than not, they go, oh, really? I should look into that. Or we lose 120,000 or
they throw the brown BS flag on you and they don't agree. That's okay.
Which is fine. Like they go like, well, we only lose actually, we just ran a report. We only lose $20,000 for that. And you go like, oh, okay.
Cool. And how'd you guys do that?
How'd you guys cut down?
Conversation.
So make a packet. Make a packet. You want to improve your 1099s. You want to make sure they're saying the right thing every single time. Care about it. Spend time. Put together a core story, put together tools that they could, like videos that they can go and use and educate themselves, arm them with emails, scripts, anything. And then if they're a good 1099, and most 1099s are motivated by money, then all 1099s are motivated by money. Okay. They're going to, if it works, you know what they're going to do? Use it again and again and again, and it's beneficial for everybody because you sell more stuff, they sell more stuff, everybody's happy.
All right, so let's give them the table of contents again. So it's your messaging that you've tried to get down to 1 or 2 sentences, right? Which we talked about on a different broadcast.
Yep.
Your core story, which is you're delivering part of your messaging as part of it, but you're delivering a 60, 30, 45, 60-second story that starts problem, urgency, outcome, and hopefully creates curiosity to continue talking.
Yeah.
Right? You suggested using tools like video to film your best presentation, 60-second presentation, whomever does it, sharing that with them because that's one of the great ways people are able to learn easily these days. And then you said a starter script, which I liked. Which they don't have to use, which also included some emails, some text messages, messaging associated with it. I think that's a really good way to do it. I actually think that would really help a lot of small med device companies help their 1099 sell more. Because at the end of the day, the 1099s do want to sell more. They wouldn't have talked to you in the first place if they didn't think you had something of value, right? So this is a great way to help, assist, measure,
grow
your 1099s if you're going to use them and grow, right? And yes, it's going to change over time. Cool. What doesn't? But if you don't have something like this, this is your scouting report, script, plan. And unless you're the groundlings, which Ryan and I were laughing about earlier, who, totally make it up as they go along. That's hard to do. People want this type of thing, and I think it helps a lot. I mean, I've seen it work. I've used them. I still use them today. I really like that idea. So, Rye, call to action for folks who want to learn more about this type of thing. What would you suggest they do? Anything they can do by themselves and or should reach out to you? What do you want them to do?
I would say, so if you are using 1099s and you're sitting here and you're going like, I don't do any of those things, I reach out. I'll help you put something together. I will, go like, hey, here's what you probably should do. Here's what we talked about during the show. Here's how you can tighten it up. Here's an example of like what it should look like. And then go do it, right? But if you're sitting here going like, I have 1099s and I have this problem, and I think that like a lot of founders are going to listen to this and go like, they're describing me, then
I hope so.
then one, we picked a good topic, but two, reach out and we'll help you.
Yeah, I like it. Well, this has been, hopefully we helped. And by the way, to, small med device companies, you're not the only one going, hey, that sounded like us. Everybody's like this.
Yeah.
That's why we do these things, to try to help, to learn from the things we've seen and done and failed at and succeeded at. So this has been Breaking Med Tech. We'll see you next time.
Bye.